and welcome to This Week in Travel. I'm your host, Michelle Robson, and editor of Turning Left for Less. As you can see if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not at home. I'm sitting in the glorious sunshine in Charleston in the US. If you've never visited this city before, I highly recommend it. I'm currently sitting on the club terrace at the Hotel Bennett, which is situated in the heart of the historic district. So why would you come to Charleston? Well, it's definitely got a very historic past, and if you're a fan of Gone with the Wind and that sort of thing like I am, then you'll definitely be in your element here. The centre is full of boutique shops, there's amazing restaurants and a real speakeasy bar culture, and of course the weather is wonderful. You can come here and then visit lots of other places as well. For example, I'm going down to Savannah, which is about 2 hours drive from here, and then I'm going to hit the coast at Hilton Head, which is an island that's known for its beach resorts, and there's plenty of places like that along the coast here. So there's a lot of things you can do, and it's a great place for a driving holiday. You can't fly direct here with British Airways anymore. Unfortunately, that stopped when COVID hit. But I flew via Philadelphia with British Airways and then onwards from there with American Airlines. That took about an hour and a half from there, so it was quite a short hop. So the news this week, I'm going to keep it fairly short because we've got quite a long segment today on visiting Las Vegas with lots of tips and hints. And I'll be joined by Steve, who's a Vegas expert. Unfortunately, there was bad news this week with another strike by Unite members who work in security in Heathrow's Terminal 5. They've announced another lot of dates that span May and will no doubt cause some problems for travellers. Last time it actually wasn't too bad. Heathrow drafted in a lot of extra managers to help, and actually the queues weren't really any more than normal. However, the British Airways First Wing, which is for gold card holders and people travelling in first, did close its security lane for pretty much the whole time. I think it was open for a couple of hours on one of the days, but that was pretty much it. So you would have to go through fast track instead. The real downside of it is the fact that last time British Airways cancelled 32 flights every single day of the strike. That was at the request of Heathrow because they didn't think they could cope with the numbers. Now this time doesn't coincide so much with a peak travel period for the first set of dates because it's early May, though it is around the coronation, so that could perhaps cause some problems. But the second half of dates are actually in half term. And obviously that's another travel peak period. So I would not be surprised if Heathrow don't ask British Airways to cancel some flights. Last time they were pretty much all short haul. Occasionally they do cancel New York because obviously there's multiple flights a day, but normally they plan on cancelling short haul. At the present moment we haven't heard anything definitely to say what they're planning to do, but I'm sure British Airways will be pushing back very hard against Heathrow because obviously they don't want to cancel short haul flights either. So watch this space and I will pop below the full details and all the dates for the strikes. The other bit of news is that Hilton have launched their new bonus promotion, which runs from May to September, and you can register now. It gives you an extra 2,000 points per stay or 4,000 points if you stay at a resort. This is the usual sort of promotion that they do. It alternates between that and a certain number of bonus points per night. This one's not so good if you tend to spend a lot on hotels because 2,000 points is not that much. If you're perhaps staying for a week in a high-end resort, it's not a massive bonus, but it's better than nothing, so you may as well sign up. Even if you've already booked your stay, you can still get the bonus points. You just have to make sure you register before you actually stay. So that's all for the news this week. I'll pop all the details of both things I talked about below in the notes. So let's move on to our main feature, which is talking about visiting Las Vegas. Now, even if you think you don't like it, have a listen because actually you might be surprised. I didn't like it the first time I went there because I was kind of doing it wrong. There's different ways you can do Vegas. It doesn't all have to be about masses of people and being gouged for extra charges and all that kind of thing. So have a listen and see what you think. So today's topic is going to be all about Vegas and particularly aimed at those that haven't been before, but there'll be plenty for those that are regular visitors like myself and today's guest, Steve. Welcome to Turning Left for Less and This Week in Travel, Steve. You have appeared with us before on a previous video, which I'll link below for those that want to have a look at what we've talked about before. But today we're going to kind of start afresh and give a condensed view of Vegas and how to start planning your trip there. So tell us a bit about yourself, Steve, and your sort of history with your love of Vegas.
Well, so I've been going to Vegas for years now, numerous times a year as well. Very much discovered it by accident, actually. Was just looking for somewhere new to go, somewhere new to travel within the US. I've always been a fan of traveling and in particular traveling to the US. So it was just somewhere different at the time. Little did I know from that sort of first trip, I would be hooked into that sort of Vegas experience. I'm very much I'll go there to gamble, but I know a lot of people that don't, and I know a lot of people that go there simply for the other experiences too, which is I think what we're kind of going to try and focus on in this, a little bit more of the travel side and not necessarily just focused on the gambling side. Although of course it wouldn't be Vegas without the gambling, so maybe a little touch of that.
Absolutely. So I'm definitely, I wouldn't say a non-gambler, but I gamble very little. I'll do trips where I don't gamble at all. So I'll kind of cover that, more of that side, and you can cover a little bit of the gambling. And I should also point out, if you want to find out what's happening in Vegas, Steve is on Twitter as Las Vegas UK, and I'll pop his handle in the notes below so you can follow him for the latest tips. So I thought we'd start talking about why we particularly love Vegas. And I thought I'd just say a little bit about what it was that I really like. I've been, I reckon, probably, I've lost count, but something like 17 times, maybe more. I go every year. And I think when I first went, I didn't really like it, if I'm honest. I think because I did it a bit on the cheap and I really didn't know what I was doing. And to me, I think the reason people don't like Vegas is because they go without much of a plan. And I did the classic stay in a massive hotel, but there was queues everywhere. You had to traipse a mile through the casino to get in and out. And I just found it all very overwhelming. And then I went back and stayed, actually probably by chance really, because I kind of got stuck in Vegas and needed a hotel. And I ended up in what is now the Delano, which is a whole world away from a casino hotel. It's an all suites, very luxury hotel with its own entrance. And that kind of sold me on Vegas, and I started to really enjoy the non-gambling side, like the shows, shopping, if you like the shopping. There's some great outlet malls, the spas, the restaurants. You know, for me, it's an upmarket place with hundreds of things to do, and everything's so close by. You know, it's very easy. You can just walk from one place to the other if you need to, or get an Uber. It's very easy to get around. It's not like a big city.
That's the thing as well. There's always the sort of a very much, I think, with Vegas, and certainly I found this from talking to people who don't get the fact, why'd you go there? Why'd you go there so often? Why'd you go there every year? But people sort of stereotype it quite a lot. There's either those people that understand and get Vegas, or there's people that stereotype it as being sort of just, why would you go there if you're not going to gamble, or it's tacky? Why would you go and see the Eiffel Tower when you can go and see the real Eiffel Tower, and that sort of thing? I think once people get past that and realize what sort of Vegas truly offers, that's when it becomes an exciting travel destination. And, you know, there is, you absolutely have done the classic stereotypical sort of going the first time, probably staying, I don't know, I'm going to try and guess where you stayed now. Somewhere like Bellagio, maybe? I don't know. And
no, it was much more down market than that. Well, I say that it was actually the Mirage, which is no longer going to be the Mirage fairly shortly, but yes.
Classic property though, good choice nevertheless. And so people don't really appreciate necessarily that sort of what's there, that more than gambling. So yeah.
So what is it that keeps you going back to Vegas other than the gambling?
I think it's the fact that there's always something new to do. It's always changing. Vegas, basically, you'll come to know, they don't really care that much about tradition in some senses. Like, they won't worry about, you know, completely rebranding or knocking down an iconic casino. And we're going to be seeing some of that happen, like you mentioned, with Mirage, which is transforming, already has sort of partly transformed into the Hard Rock. They've started rebranding, like things like the Players Clubs. It's obviously now under new ownership, and they're going to be completely, you know, renovating that property, but also removing like the Mirage Volcano, which is seen as iconic in Vegas, and putting a massive new tower in there shaped like a guitar. So I think that's something that some people sort of resent that and think, oh, but I really used to love going there. I always say this to people whenever, and this is kind of probably my first tip. Whenever you go to Vegas, if you want to see something, see it that time, because there's no guarantee it will still be there. You know, and one thing I love about it is, you know, I can go back and visit places that I really enjoy, and because of course everything doesn't change, but there's also loads of new stuff to do every time. So it is like a new holiday, a new trip every time I go. And there's so many, you know, even the fact there's so many different hotels and options there, you could stay in a different hotel every trip, and you won't run out within 30 trips.
Yeah.
So for me, that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree with the something new every time, which is what I think partly keeps me going back, particularly with things like shows and concerts. I love going to concerts in Vegas. I'm not that keen on going somewhere like the O2 where it's full of, tens of thousands of people and you don't get a very good view and it's hugely expensive. In Vegas, it's not cheap, but you get a purpose-built theatre that's much closer to where the stage is, and it's a much more sophisticated experience. You get your cocktails that you can take to your seat. Some of them even have like a VIP area where you get waitress service. It's very different from going to a normal concert, and you can see someone like, I don't know, I saw Mariah Carey, for example, very close. For not thousands, more like hundreds. So I think it's a great place for music and shows as well. There's always new shows, and even more sophisticated things like art. There's the Bellagio quite often has art exhibitions. There's things like the Titanic Museum that I found really fascinating. There's all sorts of things that for every taste, really.
Yeah, and where else can you? I mean, you give the example of shows, which is a great example. Where else can you go and see Adele in a tiny theatre? Well, tiny by the standards of the O2. And they still have like T-Mobile Arena. So if you want to go and see someone perform in a big arena, there's that option too. I think that it's just those options, having those options and having those opportunities to see those artists. And artists are coming and performing there partly because it's Vegas. It gives them they like performing in a more intimate environment as well, which is why you see artists like Celine Dion had residencies for a long time. Adele now has a residency. There's loads of other big artists, Elton John for a long time. And I also think that Vegas has had to continuously reinvent itself. It no longer is purely about the gambling, simply because that's not making them sufficient money. Of course, the gaming industry is huge, but they're making a lot more money now off of entertainment, nightclubs and things like that, if that's your thing. The dining experience. It's less about cheap meals, get gamblers in, buffets. Most buffets closed during COVID and haven't reopened, So it's definitely that switch.
Absolutely. I've seen a big change over the years I've been going. I think I first went something like maybe 25 years ago, so quite a long time I've been going. And it used to be much more down market. I think you'd see the typical Americans in their t-shirt and trainers and baseball cap and going around the buffets, and it was all a bit kind of down market in some ways. Whereas now you walk along the strip at night and everyone's you've got all the sort of younger people glammed up in and ready to go to the nightclubs. You've got world-class restaurants there from Michelin star chefs. It's quite a different world from how it used to be perceived. It's definitely not the all-you-can-eat buffet for $1.99 or whatever it used to be.
Well, and the great thing is that stuff can still be found if you want to find it. Like for me, surprising as it may sound, I'm not the person going out to nightclubs and spending like $100 on a JD and Coke or whatever. But some people are, and some people go purely for that experience because they want to go and see, some DJ that I've probably never heard of. But equally, I'm going to go and probably want to see some musician that they don't care about too. So that's the great thing, and that's why I always mention or try and mention, and it kind of some ways doesn't fit too much with the theme of Turning Left for Less, which is sort of more luxury, but downtown too. That is still there, and for those who are on a budget, downtown is the place to go, and it's having a lot of investment put into it at the moment. I think that's something to watch over the next few years. Yeah, definitely.
I think we'll come back to downtown when we talk a bit about what to do, because I certainly have a tip for there. But for now, what we'll do, I think, is we'll start at the beginning. And I think some people, when they start planning their trip to Vegas, they just randomly pick a date, and it might be a long trip where they randomly go, right, we'll end up in Vegas on this day, and then they might look at the prices of hotels and go, oh my god, how is it so expensive? Because there's a train going past. We'll edit this bit out. So because the prices can the prices can vary absolutely wildly from one day to the next. So I think it's quite important to actually think about when you're going, if you have a choice over it. So what would be your tips for how to get the best value in terms of booking a Vegas trip and what to watch out for?
Well, the first thing for me is I like to try and avoid the summer months, really, which, sounds odd to a lot of Brits because they like to go away in sort of July, August. But Vegas in July and August is like super hot, like way too hot. So for me, it's sort of that sort of March, April time, around this time of year actually, and then maybe October time is a great time to go. However, there are some caveats to that. And you mentioned that people might pick random dates and they'll be super expensive. So there are some key events that happen across the year that you want to avoid. Obvious ones like the Super Bowl, because gamblers want to go in the United States. Although it's got easier, it's hard to gamble on sport. It's not like here in the UK where you can gamble on sport pretty freely. So in some states they don't have legalized sports gambling, so people tend to go to Vegas, and that is changing, but tends to happen. So the Super Bowl weekend, it's always going to be expensive. You then in March have March Madness, which is a big basketball weekend. That's going to be expensive. I mentioned October, Halloween's going to be expensive. So there are some caveats to this. The other thing to think about is conferences. The conference business in Vegas is huge. If there's a big conference in town, it's probably going to be expensive. So like the obvious one in January is CES. There's a great website called Vegas Means Business, which is run by the Vegas Tourism Board, that lists all those conferences, but also details the number of delegates. So if it seems really expensive at the date you're looking at, go and look there. Chances are there's a big conference on, if you can't think of anything else that's obvious. So it's thinking about, picking around those dates. A great time to go is Christmas. Christmas is always cheap. The weather is slightly colder, but it's not by any means freezing. Vegas, in the lead up to Christmas, certainly tends to be a bit slower. There is a rodeo event on, which makes it a little bit busier and a little bit more expensive. But if you can avoid that week, then that's a good time. February is also normally quite quiet. If you're wanting to go at a cheaper, quieter time. The caveat to that being, I've been before in February and things have been closed for sort of renovation and stuff, because obviously in the slower months, they're going to shut some of these restaurants down to do work they need to do. So it's ready, for instance, for the Super Bowl. So that really is when I would go. That's not to say you couldn't go in the summer, and plenty of people do. And actually the summer can be cheap because of the fact that it's so hot. A lot of Americans in particular don't want to go to Vegas when it's that hot. But it is hot,
Yeah,
really
I've been
hot.
there, and I think it was well over 42, 43 degrees. But I would say actually it was more bearable than I thought, and it was super cheap. I think if you're someone who doesn't sit by the pool and you're not planning to do a lot of walking, then actually it could be
You'll be
quite
fine.
good. If you're just going to mainly be inside, maybe you're going to be
Everything is air
gambling or going to
conditioned.
shows or shopping, then actually it's a cheap time to go. I think my other tip would be fight weekends. So they have a lot of big boxing matches, which are either in Vegas or sometimes people go, as you say, to gamble on them. So yeah, looking up if there's a fight night, that definitely avoid those weekends.
I've got a story about a fight weekend. So I once got stuck in Vegas because I was flying home with BA and the flight got cancelled because there was a problem with the plane. And they were like, oh, we can't arrange hotels, so just sort yourselves out hotels and claim it back from BA. However, it was a fight weekend. So try finding a hotel room in Vegas on a big fight weekend. It's tough. Yeah. So look out for that too. That's true. That's a very good point.
And if you're on a driving holiday where you're going to be sort of planning a route, if you can avoid Vegas at a weekend, I would, because prices are always much more at weekends. A lot of people in the vicinity will drive, from Los Angeles just for a night or two. Fridays, not quite so bad because people tend to arrive quite late or on a Saturday morning, but definitely avoid Saturday nights if you can, because they're really expensive. And in terms of going in the winter, I think I've been at almost every time of year, but one thing I think Brits don't realize, they think it's going to be hot all year round, and actually in the winter all the pools are generally closed. I think there might be one or two hotels. I know at Resorts World they did have one pool open in the winter, which was well heated, so it was usable, but it was, a lot of the time I've been there, it's been like 9 degrees. So normally it's more like, I'd say about 15 is the average sort of winter temperature, but it's definitely not really sunbathing weather.
It really depends on what you're looking for in your Vegas experience. You're absolutely right, because if you're looking to spend a lot of time around the pool, you need to be warm enough, but you don't want it to be so warm that you're literally, baking in the sun. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. For me, I spend a lot of time inside, so I can pretty much go any time of year. And as well, you know, if you are going to gamble, there is obviously the thought about when you can perhaps get free rooms and stuff.
So talking of rooms, I think that leads us nicely into the next part of planning a trip. So we've decided when we're going. We're hopefully avoiding the expensive bits. What would be your tips for hotels, and what are your favourite hotels to stay in?
Oh, so it's such a difficult question because there's so many great hotels in Vegas. And if you'd have asked me a couple of years ago, my answer probably would have been different too, because there's been new hotels built since. So it really depends on what you're looking for in a hotel. For me, with Vegas, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, I would say if you're simply going to Vegas as, you know, for the first time as an everyday tourist, I wouldn't pick based on hotel loyalty necessarily in this instance, because the benefits don't mean so much in Vegas. With maybe the exception of if you're going to book through a preferred partner program like Impresario. But, you know, you can book the Venetian through IHG, I think. You can book most of the MGM properties through Hyatt. It's really not worth it if you're solely booking those for your benefits, because the benefits you're not going to be getting those upgrades, those room upgrades and stuff like that. You'd maybe get your breakfast included, but that'd be about it. Purely because the priority for the hotels is rewarding gamblers in most cases. So I would be trying to pick based on location, I think, and depending then on what you want to get out of your trip. So anywhere in that sort of center strip is a great place to look. See what sort of, depending on your price points, you might want to be looking at the Cosmopolitan, which is always very popular. That's also now owned by MGM, so it's part of that sort of group. You've also obviously got the classics like Caesar's Palace and Bellagio, which, you know, for me, some people will say Caesar's and Bellagio trading on their name. They're still solid options, I think, in Vegas. Real luxury, a little bit more out of the way, but obviously the Wynn and Encore, they're definitely going to set you back a little bit more money, but they really are probably the most luxurious experience you're going to get. And then you've got Resorts World too, which is a Hilton, a Conrad, and Crockford's, which is part of their LXR brand. So that's another option, and that's a great option for Impresario. The other thing is, if you want to avoid casinos, there are non-casino options. And I know you're probably going to mention this, but places like Nomad is my place now. If I'm on the Strip, that's where I'm going. It's got its own entrance. It's still part of Park MGM, which is a casino. So you've still got that element to it, but you can completely bypass the casino if you want. Most people like the fact it's non-smoking. You've got access. It's linked to Aria and Bellagio really easily. Great location. Boutique hotel, probably my number one place right now on the Strip. I've stayed at Delano as well. Great property on the very top of Mandalay Bay. They've also got obviously the Four Seasons in there. You've got the Waldorf Astoria. So people are surprised because there's all these properties. They're all non-gambling, and you can stay at those too. So for me, on the Strip, Nomad. And then downtown, there's loads of value options if you want to save a bit of money. I wouldn't necessarily stay there if it was my first trip, because I think you really need to stay on the Strip for your first trip.
Absolutely. I mean, I would agree with you. Actually, Nomad is my number one now. I think that if I chose solely on hotels that I really like rather than balancing it with cost, it would be the Four Seasons, because it's definitely a nicer property, but it can be quite expensive, and Nomad can be great value. And they're very similar in that they're both, as you say, non-casino properties, but they're connected to a casino, which is great because you've got that opportunity to dip in and out, but it's easy to get out. Because what I hate in Vegas is the amount of time you waste traipsing through casinos and getting out of hotels, because they're just huge. People aren't really ready for the vastness of some of the Vegas hotels. You can do your 10,000 steps just in the morning trying to get from one hotel to the other. So yeah, I think Four Seasons, the pool's nicer for me than Nomad. It's a bit quiet there because it's down one end of the Strip, so the location's not as good, but it is definitely a more luxurious property. But yeah, Nomad has its own pool, which I really like. Really like the restaurant there, the library. Even if you're not staying, I definitely recommend that. And you also mentioned Crockford's. Now, Crockford's is technically does have a casino, but it does have a private.
Yes, that's true.
It does have a private entrance. So to me, it's what I would call one of the boutique non-gaming properties technically, because you don't have to traipse through the casino. It's very easy to get in and out. Uber drivers can pick you up right outside, which is a big consideration for me because I don't want to be walking for 20 minutes to try and get in a cab or an Uber. And that's very luxurious. The one that you mentioned that I'm not so keen on, but I'll leave people to make their own decisions, is the Waldorf Astoria. And you might be able to fill me in on this, but this used to be the Mandarin Oriental and used to be in my kind of list of go-to properties. But since they've taken it over, as far as I'm aware, they still haven't got around to renovating it. And it's looking quite old and jaded when I last went. The rooms, you know, in substance are great, and they've got lovely bathtubs and it's got a nice pool, but it's definitely looking old. Do you know any more about when this renovation that they've been talking about for years?
Well, I was about to say they've been talking about it for years, so I assume it's happening, but it hasn't happened yet. Obviously, as well, Hilton have now, when Hilton took over what was the Mandarin Oriental, they didn't have a massive presence in Vegas. They had the Hilton Vacation Hotel, which is over at the Flamingo, but they didn't really have a great presence at all. And that has changed now with Resorts World. So it'd be really interesting to see what happens with the Waldorf Astoria. I'm not quite sure whether it's now a priority for them or not, given that they've obviously got three more properties on the Strip. But yeah, I certainly now would be picking Crockford's and even Conrad, actually, I think, over the Waldorf Astoria, particularly if I was booking on Impresario, which is now available at Conrad again too. Whereas it was available and then they took it away because of people were basically booking rooms for like $120 and getting the Impresario benefits. It wasn't working out for them, clearly, from a value perspective. But they brought that back now with a minimum booking period, I think, of like 2 nights or 3 nights. So which is fine. So I think I would agree with you there. It'd be interesting to see actually what happens with that property and whether Hilton eventually just let it go. I don't know. It needs someone to sort it out though, because it is a good property, and it certainly had a great spa and a great afternoon tea under the Mandarin Oriental. I haven't been back since it changed the Waldorf, I must say. Champagne vending machine too.
Oh yes, the champagne machine. The spa is still good. I still recommend that, and the bar is good with some great views. I think just talking about Resorts World, it's worth mentioning it is a little bit out of the way because it's right down the very end of the Strip.
Yes, it is.
And the Conrad, it's a nice property. I have reviewed it, and I'll put links to everything in the notes. But I think it's not what you might expect if you've been to some of the more luxurious Conrads in the world.
Certainly
it's a nice
not.
property, but it's not the same level as, say,
it's not the Conrad in Asia. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
but it's great value.
And it's massive as well. It's a lot bigger than you might expect from any sort of Conrad you've seen before. But yeah, it is great. But in comparison, you're right, it's great value compared to those other Conrads, really. And also, I think there was an issue for a while. I think you might have experienced this too with the Uber pickups from Conrad and the Hilton. I think they've changed that now, but I would hate to be quoted on it because I'm not 100%. I think they have changed it because you used to have to get picked up in some car park like miles away and things like that. Yeah.
Yes, and it was a good sort of probably 20 minutes walk if you had a room at the end of the corridor, and then for me as a female alone, be standing there in the pitch black with no lighting or anything, waiting for a deserted
random dark guy to pick you up in his car.
Yeah, it
was great.
Very odd for a luxury hotel. And I think we could just touch now, if I just kind of mention, you said about the brands. So you've mentioned about IHG. I think with Hilton, there is a Hilton, I think, is it whatever they call vacations? What's the Alara, which is more like a
that's the one where Flamingo is. Yeah.
Which I wouldn't really recommend that.
No,
my choice would probably be the Conrad if you want to stay in a Hilton, or the Crockfords, which is definitely a big step above the Conrads, much smaller and more luxurious. I think Marriott, obviously you can update us with the Cosmopolitan. Now it got taken by MGM, but is it still part of Bonvoy?
It's still part of Bonvoy at the moment. I don't know if they're planning to switch it over to Hyatt eventually. I don't know. There must be some kind of contract involved, I'd imagine. But everything else now is switched over to MGM. But it's still part of Bonvoy at the moment. Yeah.
And the other one for Marriott would be, that's close to the Strip, would be the Grand Chateau, I think it's, which are more apartment scale. It's like a sort of timeshare that they sell rooms in, which is supposed to be fine. And it's what, a few minutes walk from the Strip, 5 minutes walk to the centre of the Strip. So it's a good location. It's reasonable value as well, but it's not particularly luxurious now. It's a bit old.
Yeah, I think with hotel loyalty, unless you're sort of really sticking with one of those. I think Hilton probably now has probably the best options in terms of if you want your benefits and you want your value, because Conrad and even the Hilton up there. I mean, the Hilton's just it's a bog standard Hilton. It's absolutely fine if you just want to experience Vegas for a couple of nights, and so they are cheap, really good value. I've seen rooms at the Conrad as low as like $80, which is unheard of for that brand of hotel.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well,
and the room product is solid for that price point. Certainly, really good.
Yeah, I think you have to take the price into consideration. You can't pay, as you said, sort of $80-90 for a room and then expect it to be, as good as a Conrad in Asia that's £300 a night. So it's all down to the value for money, really. The other one I'll just mention as well, whilst we're talking about loyalty, would be for Marriott. If you get completely getting away from the Strip, perhaps if you just wanted one night somewhere, like for example, if you had stupidly booked when it's a fight night or something and you can't find anything reasonable. I stayed at the English, which is close to downtown. It's sort of walking distance to downtown in the Arts District. Now, it's not the best area, I have to admit that. I wouldn't particularly want to walk around on my own at night, but getting an Uber was fine. It's a small boutique hotel. It's quite luxurious. It has a few quirks, like the completely see-through bathroom. So be prepared for that. Apparently there are ways around it with lighting to avoid it being see-through, but obviously on your own it's absolutely fine. But that tends to be good value, and it is a really nice property. It's nice and quiet. There's a Todd English restaurant that was very good, which is worth visiting anyway if you're in the area. But yeah, that's worth considering if you're looking for a Marriott property. But I probably wouldn't stay there for more than one night, maybe two at a push if you really struggle to find something that's good value, because it is a bit out of the way. But it's easy to get Ubers around there because it's so close to downtown.
That's one I haven't actually stayed at, so I'll have to maybe give that one a go. Because I was going to say the other thing to think about is we're talking about all these like great hotel room prices, $100, but there's also something called a resort fee in Vegas.
Yes,
that is pretty much unavoidable at this point. Unless I think Biden actually brought this up recently and wants to get rid of these fees. But anyway, so pretty much wherever you stay, you're going to end up paying a daily resort fee. And that can be, up to like $60. So I think it is, in fact, at Conrad with tax. So if you're getting a room for $80, but then you're paying a $60 resort fee, suddenly that $80 isn't looking as great. So just bear that in mind and be careful, because people can fall into that trap. The hotels are pretty good at signposting that fee now, but it can be missed. So just bear it in mind, and that's a daily fee on top of your room rate. And then they say they give you stuff for it, but it's like, oh, you can have Wi-Fi access, so you can have access to online newspapers. You have access to the gym at the hotel you're already paying to stay at. But so but they're unavoidable, unfortunately. In Vegas, they're everywhere. You won't be able to avoid them. There's like one or two places that don't have them, and I think they're both downtown. Yeah. So something to bear in mind.
Worth mentioning. And I think you touched on Impresario, so I thought we'd just quickly talk about. So there are agents like GTC that I work with, and Steve is one as well, that what you'd be called, I guess, a luxury travel agent, where there are schemes like Hilton Impresario, Hyatt Privé, Marriott Stars and Luminous, and also there are Virtuoso, which covers kind of generic hotels that aren't part of those schemes, and they basically give you extra benefits. There could be things like room upgrades, early checkout, early check-in, late checkout, all that sort of thing. So you're kind of the expert here, Steve. What tips would you give in terms of booking Vegas hotels, perhaps maximizing those?
I think you need to probably, for me, again, I feel like I'm now shilling Hilton, which is not my aim at all. But for me, I've had the most success with booking people through Impresario, particularly at Resorts World. So that's a great one to go for, because there's so many rooms that they can upgrade people where possible. It doesn't always happen. You need to have a good agent who knows Vegas and is willing to sort of fight on your behalf for those room upgrades. Because like I said before, they tend to be giving these upgrades away to, if you've got a big gambler coming in who's going to spend $100,000 that weekend, they're going to upgrade that gambler first. It's just that's the way Vegas is. That's the town. So picking the right agent's important. Pick someone who, if you can, who knows Vegas, and who knows the differences between those properties as well. Because most everyday agents might not know the difference between Conrad and Waldorf Astoria, or Waldorf Astoria and Crockford's. So that's something worth thinking about. I would say for Bonvoy, Cosmopolitan is pretty good. They have I still think they have the Marriott check-in there. They certainly did up until recently. And the buffet there is pretty decent actually, although the breakfast included is a buffet. It's a good buffet. It's one of the few good ones. most of them have closed, but that one's still opening and it's good. And they tend to upgrade. I mean, your upgrade tends to be from a regular room to a room with a balcony and a view. But actually, that's one of the big selling points of Cosmo. So it's weighing up what you're looking for too. Actually, if you're not loyal to one brand, let's say you travel a lot with work and you stay sometimes at Marriott, sometimes at Hilton, you got status of both. Maybe think about, okay, what do I actually want from this trip? Do I want to be in the center of the strip with a view? Then Cosmopolitan, Bonvoy is probably the way to go. Do I want to actually focus on the upgrades? Maybe it's better to stay at Conrad, but you're gonna have to walk a little bit to get back to the center of the strip. So that's probably how I would think about it.
Absolutely, and I think it's worth pointing out two things with those schemes that are allied to the major brands. Is firstly, if you're collecting points, that it doesn't affect that, because obviously a lot of people thinking booking through an agent actually means you don't get your points,
and your stay credit. Yeah,
exactly. And you also might get your Hilton perks on top of that as well, or Marriott perks, depending on, I mean, they overlap with a lot of the perks that you're offering, like the free breakfast, etc. But if there are ones on top of that, you should get that as well. And I think also it kind of helps with the upgrades as well.
The good thing about Conrad and Crockford, certainly this was the case until recently, but the breakfast instead was a food credit. So you got the credit on top of your breakfast that you get with your diamond or gold Hilton membership. And there have been recently some good sort of deals, three nights the price of two and things. So that's worth considering as well if you can spot those offerings, because that can save you quite a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rates are always flexible, not so much in Vegas. You have to check because it's slightly different to the rest of the world, but normally they're flexible. And in Vegas, you do sometimes have to pay a deposit, which is worth mentioning, because almost every single hotel in Vegas will charge a deposit, even on a flexible rate, which is unusual, I think, for most places in the world.
Yeah, and a little hint, people probably already know this, but if you want a rough idea of what you'll be paying under Impresario, for instance, if you just look up on the Hilton app the flexible rate, it's normally the same as the flexible rate, but that's without any discounts. If you have like a 3 for 2 offer, obviously it's going to work out cheaper, which is why it was such a good deal for like a long time. I think the last time we were in Vegas together, the Impresario rate at the time was a 3 for 2, so you could stay there for 3 nights the price of 2, and the rates were dirt cheap because Resorts World had only recently opened. People were only just getting back after COVID, so with those 3 for 2 offers, we were even able to undercut the Hilton app themselves, Hilton themselves, and what you could book through them. So unfortunately those deals are slowing down now because travel has rebounded. Well, Vegas certainly has.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just planning my next trip, and definitely I've managed to pick a weekend where there's something going on. So I might even stay in LA because I'm flying by LA.
Which weekend are you looking at?
It's the first weekend in October, I think. Yeah, last week of September, first week of October. I don't know what's going on, but I looked at the price and thought, perhaps not.
Well, they've also got the Formula One coming to Vegas now in November. A lot of people used to love going in November because that used to be a great time to go because it was cheap. But now, other than Thanksgiving, but sort of slap bang in the middle of that now, 18th of November, you've got the Formula One. So, and ticket prices for that, hotel room prices for that too, because it's going to be on the strip. So you'll be able to see it from your hotel room. So you can imagine the prices of places like Cosmo with those balconies.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can only imagine.
Scary.
How crazy that's going to be.
You'll have people paying thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for a room that's normally $200 a night.
Yeah, don't go that weekend unless you want to see the racing.
Yeah, unless you've already happened to book that weekend and you've secured a hotel room, then you're good. But I don't know what flight prices will be like. I assume they'll be high too.
Yes, yeah. One other thing, just touching on the loyalty side, is it's worth joining something like the MGM. I can't remember what's it called now. The MGM
It's very
rewards.
creative. It's called MGM Rewards now.
There we go, MGM Rewards, because they do
Yeah.
give a discount, and you can match to your Hyatt status. I believe that's still going.
Yes, it
So
is.
I've done that and matched to my Hyatt status, which I think takes me to something like Golden MGM, where you get a discount booking. So sometimes it's actually worth doing that if you're looking at a lower property where it's
Yeah.
not something that you could get through one of the virtuoso or impresario type of things, and it's worth looking, because quite often the discount could be around about 10%, and quite often flexible rates as well. So it's worth signing up for that. And don't forget, it's people think it's all about gambling, but in fact MGM Rewards, which is the scheme I know the most about, you get credit on all your spend on hotels as well. So it's very easy to actually make status in one trip if you stayed in an MGM hotel.
It's worth doing that match too, because with MGM Gold, for instance, you get no resort fees now. That's the benefit, and free parking if you've got a car. So that's worth knowing if you're driving in. And with the Hyatt thing too, you can just rematch every year. If you play your cards right, you can rematch back to Hyatt and then match back to MGM, because the expiry dates work out quite nicely for that. So if you want to know more about that, I recommend just Googling the MGM Hyatt merry-go-round. That's what it's called. And there's a whole system of how to do it. But basically, if you do it on the right time at the start of the year, you could always maintain status with both. So that's worth knowing as well. And if you're going to gamble, use your card in the machines, because that's how you can eventually get free rooms. Yeah,
absolutely. So I think we've covered the basics there of when to go and where to stay. So that's kind of what you need to know. I'll mention one thing before we move on to kind of what to do whilst you're there, and that's about hiring a car. Now, I don't know if you would agree with me, Steve, but my advice would be don't hire a car unless you're just going to stay within Vegas.
Yes.
If you plan to go out for the day, just hire a car for the day, because virtually all the big hotels have a car hire desk.
Yeah.
So just hire it for the day. Don't hire it whilst you're there, because it sounds like, oh, well, I'll just drive from one hotel to the other. But unless you're going to pay for valet parking, self-park can take you 20 minutes to walk from the car park into the hotel in the blazing sun if it's hot. So personally, I think don't bother.
And most hotels now you have to pay to park too. So unless you've got status with those hotels, you're going to be paying every time you park there. So Absolutely. It's really less worth it. You'd be better off just paying the $10 or whatever it is to get an Uber, because Ubers are very readily available, and rideshare in Vegas is actually pretty good. I've always found it pretty safe. Taxis have got better actually as well now, because of rideshare, I think, and the competition that's brought about. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't hire a car. I've never hired a car whenever I've gone to Vegas. Some people will end up with a car, obviously, because they drive in. If they're on a, I know a lot of people like to take a trip along the West Coast, and they'll be on a driving holiday. That's fine. But don't hire a car just for Vegas. You shouldn't really need to use your car at all whilst you're in Vegas.
Well, I guess that kind of brings us on to what to do and where to go. And the one time that you probably might want to hire a car is if you want to get out of Vegas. So if you went for a longer trip, there's quite a few things outside Vegas that I'd recommend. For example, the Grand Canyon. That's a big one that most people tend to do. You can either fly in a helicopter, which lands, or you can do just a plane ride over, which I've done. And then there's also the Hoover Dam. I've actually been to Lake Mead as well, which is by the Hoover Dam, and hired a boat. That was really good fun. So if you've done Vegas a lot and you're looking for something different to do, I definitely would recommend going and hiring a boat there for a few hours. It was quite easy to do. And there's also Red Rock Canyon, which if you like to get out away from the bustle of Vegas, that's a good place to do it. Have you got any places outside Vegas that you'd recommend?
Did you mention the Hoover Dam?
Yes, I haven't actually. Have you been inside it? Because I gather you can actually go on a tour. I've never actually done anything and drive past it.
No, I've never been on the tour either, but that's one thing to do. I think you've mentioned most of the ones I would obviously pick. I mean, I'm probably not the best person to ask, because once I'm in Vegas, I tend to stay in Vegas. I never leave. The one thing worth mentioning is the shopping and the outlets and things. They're also worth having a car for if you're going to do a lot of shopping. But particularly if you like to buy a lot, because you're going to want to be able to put all that stuff that you buy in the back of the car. So that's one thing I would do. In terms of getting out of Vegas, though, probably all the things you've mentioned, to be honest. There's nothing really I would add to that list. I'm sure as soon as we finish this, I'll think of something else. And there are a few other things I probably mentioned in my blog post on the website that I now escape my mind. But
Well,
yeah,
we'll link it so people can
there's a shameless
check
plug.
and also refresh their memory.
Yeah, but certainly it's, you can get out of Vegas, but if you want to do that, that's when it is, I guess, worth having a car. After I've said it's not, don't get a car. If you want to go out, then maybe it is worth having a car.
But I go to the outlets quite regularly. You can get an Uber as well, and the bus even. We haven't mentioned the bus because I'm guessing most turning left for left readers aren't bus people, but actually the bus is quite an easy way to get around. Particularly if you're kind of walking, if you're already outside the hotel, it's easier because the Ubers have specific spots to pick up, which are inside the hotels, that can be quicker just to hop on the bus if you're only going a short distance or want to go to the outlet malls. Now you can help me here, Steve, because I get confused between north and south. Which is the outlet near downtown? Is that north or south?
My God. I'm gonna have to confess, I don't know, because I don't tend to go to the outlets. I thought you were the shopping expert.
Which end of the strip is Resort World? Is that north or south? Do you know that?
It depends how you look at the strip.
Yes, I would say go to the outlet mall nearest downtown. And the reason I say that is, unless you're there in the summer, it's all outdoors, which is much nicer for walking around. It's low rise, it's outdoors, so it's quite pleasant. It feels like a little village, and they have some a lot more restaurants there, and I think a few more shops. It has, for example, the Cheesecake Factory, which if you've never been, they do way more than cheesecake. They have like one of the biggest menus you're ever going to see, from like really healthy salads to very simple cheesecake. So that's worth going for lunch if you're there. And there's a few other restaurants there as well. So that would be my shopping spot. The other one I'd also recommend if you want more normal shopping. In fact, there's two. There's the Fashion Mall, which is near Wynn. Which has a few restaurants there as well, and has quite a lot of high-end shops. And the other one that a lot of people don't know about is the Town Square Mall, which is just past the Mandalay Bay and Four Seasons. And again, that's got lovely sort of architecture. It's a bit sort of Spanish, so Californian kind of look. And there's a nice little green, and there's some nice restaurants that are outdoor dining, which you don't get so much on the strip. And it's just regular shops there. So if you just want the normal kind of American shops like Sephora and Gap and that sort of thing, it's a nice place to walk around. Whereas the Fashion Square Mall Fashion Show Mall is all indoors, and it's huge, so it does take a bit of walking around.
It's me nodding here like I know exactly what you're talking about. I must confess, shopping is not my strong point at all. I don't go to Vegas to shop because I just don't really care about shopping. But I know a lot of people do. And I know actually another one is a lot of Brits like to just go to like the Walmart and the Target and stuff like that, which also is, if you've got a car, that's the way to do that. Go and stock up on all that stuff you can't get at home.
Absolutely. So what else would you say to recommend doing in Vegas? We talked about let's go to downtown for a start. You talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should go to downtown at least once, just to see it, because that's the original Vegas, and it's very different. But there's a lot of money being pumped into it right now. There's a lot of great value down there. If you're a gambler, certainly the gambling. So I promised I wouldn't talk about gambling too much, but let's say blackjack. If you play blackjack, the rules on the strip are really quite very much in favor of the casino, let's say, whereas downtown you tending to get better rules. Roulette's another one. You'll get like 000 roulette on the strip, whereas downtown you're at places like Plaza, you'll get 000, which is the traditional roulette. So if you're a gambler, it's worth doing for that alone. But also there's the Fremont Street Experience, which is worth seeing, with a big light show. There's stages down there. There's Circa now, which is a lot more sort of luxurious, has a great bar in the middle. The name has just got out of my head. I had it in my head 2 seconds ago, but it's got out of my head now. There's a great bar. We had cocktails there.
Yes.
Really good, and not bad value either for Vegas. I don't think. But it's probably not the sort of place that you're going to want to necessarily go and stay as a first-time visitor, or particularly if you're looking for luxury travel. Yeah. But it's worth just going down there. And I would probably say go down there. I would personally say go down there at nighttime, because then you can see all the lights. But a lot of people say downtown is a bit more sketchy after dark. I personally haven't experienced that, but I can see why people might think it. You have a lot more sort of the street entertainers and stuff downtown, but then you get that on the strip too. So I would definitely go downtown at least once, just to experience it.
Yeah, I'd agree. And also worth mentioning if you like your thrill rides, there's the Slotzilla zip line.
Yeah, the zip
which
line.
I've done and was good fun.
I didn't know you'd done that. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
There's also a great.
I've done I don't know if it's still there, but the one at the Rio, which was absolutely terrifying because it's 53 stories up. It's at the very top of the building. It goes between the two towers with nothing between you and the ground other than basically a car seat belt that goes around your lap. It doesn't even go over your shoulder. I got off and my legs were like jelly.
Well, I'm impressed you've done it. I've never done the zip line, not because I'm afraid of it or anything. I just haven't ever had the chance to do it, which is odd because I've done most things in Vegas. One of my favorite restaurants is downtown. I feel like while we're talking about downtown, I should mention it. Oscar's Steakhouse at Plaza is a fantastic steakhouse, and it's definitely worth a visit if you get the chance. They're expanding that now, so it's going to have a nice outdoor seating area as well. But it has a great view down Fremont Street, so you can really take in the full vibe of downtown. So if you're looking to go down and experience it, that's one place to go maybe for dinner, and you can just experience the vibe from whilst enjoying some nice steak, and then head back to the Strip.
Yeah, I went there at the same time as you. We were in Vegas. What was it? Just over a year ago for a conference there. And Oscars is very much old school Vegas, which I think some people might appreciate. It's named after the former mayor, Oscar, who was the mob lawyer. For many
and
years.
he still goes there regularly too. He has like an office there. It's cool.
I didn't realise that, but we met him that night as well. But I really enjoyed it. It's definitely, if you want a bit of old school kind of glamour and that feel of being Vegas years ago, which you don't get so much elsewhere, I definitely recommend that. That could be a good night. Maybe do that and then the Fremont Street experience at the same time. Yeah, so let's talk a bit, since we've talked about restaurants. Anywhere else you'd recommend to eat in Vegas that's one of your favorites?
Oh, there's so many great ones. I mean, I like steak, so I try not to recommend too many steak houses. But there's Sinatra's at the Wynn. That's great.
Love that too.
I'm trying to think. I really enjoy. I love going for brunch when I'm in Vegas, and there are some great brunches. I mentioned Nomad earlier and staying at Nomad, but they do a really good brunch on a weekend. And it's really good value too. I know it's not all about the value, but it really is good value, good price. So that's worth doing if you're looking for a brunch. I personally try and avoid the celebrity chef places. A lot of people like them. I did like Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen. That's a pretty decent one, but a lot of them I find are just slightly overpriced because they're kind of trading on the name of the chef. So I would recommend those. Buffet wise, the Bacchanal buffet at Caesars is really good. And I mentioned already Wicked Spoon at Cosmopolitan. It's not the buffet you might be thinking of as a stereotypical buffet. It's not school dinners. No. It's much nicer than that. Oh my God, there's so many I haven't mentioned. Catch at Aria, I saw that mentioned the other day. That's a really nice.
So which one, sorry?
Catch at Aria. It's a seafood restaurant. Yeah.
I think Aria is really good for restaurants. I really like the Spanish restaurant there, which I'm trying to remember what it's called. I want to say Jaleo, maybe. That's really good. And also the tapas place at the Cosmopolitan is great as well. I recommend both of those. And also at Cosmopolitan is the Mexican Asian fusion Pablo
China Poblano, I think it is.
China Poblano, which has a great value set menu. That's worth doing. I think it was around about $50, but I mean that was a while ago. But that's worth doing, something completely different and really good value. I definitely recommend that. In terms of brunch, sorry to interrupt you there. We're talking about Cosmo. The food court at Cosmopolitan is really good too because it's kind of like street food setup. So like there's some really nice street food there. So if you want something quick on the go, they've got like Hattie B's, hot chicken there, things like that. It's really good. Yeah, I've walked past it many times, but I've never actually tried it. I think, and also brunch, my tip would be, there's two of them, but I like the Mandalay Bay one because it's outside dining, is the Border Grill. So that's Mexican, but it's modern Mexican. It's not like going to Chiquitos here. It's a bit more upmarket than that, and they have a really great deal because it's all you can eat small plates. and it's all brought to the table, so it's not like going to a buffet. And it's sort of Mexican fusion. And they also do about 5 different versions of mimosas, which you can also opt for a package as many as you want. And it's quite different, I think, to being in the UK, where people are quite stingy with the drinks and these sort of things, because they're working on tips, so they want you to have as many drinks as you want, because you're more likely to give them a good tip. So they literally will be lining them up for you. So yeah, you can definitely get your money's worth out of a brunch there. So it's good value for money doing something like that.
Actually, that's a great tip when you're in Vegas. Ironically enough, that's a great tip. Tipping will get you far in Vegas. Don't forget to tip, because it's a place that's based on tipping.
Yeah, and you need to budget for that, because you might have looked at a menu and thought, oh, that's good value, but when you add your 20% tip on top, then it starts getting quite
tax too, because remember, tax is added after the bill.
Absolutely.
At the end.
Yeah, so we could talk, as we're talking about tipping, we could talk a little bit more about just the very basics of gambling, because my top tip for gambling is and we're on tipping again, would be if you want your free drink, what I do, I don't know if you do this, Dee, but if I'm gambling and the waitress comes over, for the first drink, I'll tip her $5. Because that way she's going to come back to me more quickly, and then after that I'll give $1 or $2 a drink, because they're all free. So but they tend to be quite small and slightly watered down, so you're better generally with a beer, really. I'm not a beer drinker, but I wouldn't recommend the wine, although it's better value in terms of you get more for your money, but it's generally terrible. So I tend to go for cocktails, and I think people don't realize that they'll do proper cocktails. That particular margarita you can get pretty much anywhere, and a lot of hotels have a special cocktail that's available on the floor, like I think the Cosmopolitan does a few different ones. So my tip is, if you want the free drinks to keep flowing, is give a big tip to start off with.
Absolutely, that's exactly what I would do as well. Always tip well, look after your server, and they will come back to you. So what I tend to do is, because I will drink, I'll drink anything, but I do drink beer, and beer is a safe one, because you can say I would like a bottle of Budweiser, and it's going to be Budweiser. They're not going to water down Budweiser. But one of my tips is to say, have a Budweiser, please. When she brings it, I'll tip her the $5, and I'll say, I'll have another as you come round. And then they just keep rinsing and repeat, and that normally works quite nicely. There are certain places I would order other things. Cosmo is one of them, because the drinks are good there. That may change with MGM, because MGM are a fan of using machines to create drinks. So but they've always been pretty good. Win as well. Anywhere like that, you're going to get decent drinks. Actually, Resorts World too was good when I was there for cocktails, particularly the classics, like you said.
So what else would be your tips if people go to Vegas for the first time and they've never really gambled? What would be your first timer tips?
Don't go too crazy, because you can lose very, very quickly. I would say, for me, I tend to avoid games like blackjack and roulette, because the odds just aren't in your favor at all with gambling. I get that, but the odds are really pretty poor in Vegas, because they know people will gamble. You'll also find that if you go and sit at a blackjack table, it can be quite intimidating, because there will be people playing there who know the exact strategy for every hand, and they will call you out on it if you don't. So I mean, for me personally, I like playing video poker, which you do need to learn the strategy for, but that's relatively simple to do. There's apps and things you can use. Slot machines, there's loads of them. You can bet as low as 50 cents, $1. If you're just gambling for fun and you just want to have some drinks, that's a great way to go about it. They've got electronic roulette, so you could effectively, if you're with someone, one person could bet on red, one could bet on black. If it's purely about the drinks and that sort of thing, then that's fine. There are much more bigger intricacies if you really think about it. Like, you're better off playing slot machines that are, $5 a press than playing a $1 machine that costs you $5 a press, because the odds are better, because the value of the credit's better, and things like that. But I won't go into that now. But if you're interested in gambling, there are plenty of websites out there that you can have a look at, and you'll see what I mean. There's a really good message board called Vegas Message Board that's worth joining. There's loads of people on there who will give you all kinds of advice on things like gambling and comps, how you earn free rooms. It's really worth checking out. It's a great resource that I'd recommend to people if they're looking to gamble with a decent amount of money. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you're an experienced gambler, I think the main thing probably to say, if you haven't been to America and gambled there, or particularly Vegas, is signing up for the loyalty schemes and making sure you've got your card and you hand it over every time you gamble or put it in the machine.
Yeah, and it's not hard to earn sort of free runs. I mean, I never pay for a room in Vegas now because when I go there, I gamble. But I have friends that gamble, barely anything, and they're still getting free rooms midweek. So always use your card. And then if you do gamble a lot, at the end of your stay, go and visit the rewards desk and say, oh, I've gambled quite a lot. Is there anything you can do for me? And they'll check how much you've played. And you never know, they may discount your room, they may give you a free meal, they may take off the resort fee, all that kind of stuff. So it's just worth doing. If you're going to gamble anyway, it's worth doing that. But really, think about a budget, stick to it. It's very easy. I've been there. It's very easy to get carried away and think, oh, I'm winning. And within minutes, you can be losing. So really think about it. Yeah. Absolutely. Don't lose everything back to them. That's these casinos weren't built on people winning.
No, that's very true. I have a limit of somewhere between $100 and $150 for the entire time. So
yeah. Well, this is
on shopping and
it's all relative. I mean, I could lose $150 in about 30 seconds, I think. Yeah. That's another story for another day.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things we haven't covered, which are shows. As the first one, and then I'll talk a bit about spas as well, because we haven't touched on that, and that for me is an important part of the Vegas experience. What would be, do you have any favourite shows that you've been to, or any tips about going to see shows?
I really like Love, which is a Cirque du Soleil show. That would be the one I would go and see, but there are loads of them all across the strip, and they're all pretty good. So I would definitely recommend that. You've also got a show called Absinthe. Have you seen Absinthe?
I've seen it 2 or 3 times. It's great, but not for the easily offended, which seems to be everyone nowadays. But yeah, if you're easily offended or with people that don't go there. But it's incredibly funny.
It's a really good show, and they've tried to recreate it, and they've got other shows on the strip, but that's the one to go to. That's the best one, because they've got Opium, I think, at Cosmo now, and they've got another one. But yeah, so Absinthe, absolutely go to that. I always try and go and see. I try and time my trips to go and see a musician. And by musician, I mean someone relatively famous, someone who would be in the charts, if I can. And it's not actually that hard to do, because there's quite a lot of people always playing in Vegas. So for me, I would probably put that high on my list now of timing a trip around seeing someone. I probably shouldn't admit it, but I'm big into country music. So for me, America is a great opportunity to go and see that I can't normally necessarily see back at home. So I'll try and pick to go and see someone who I can't see at home while they're in Vegas. So that would be another thing. I've been to see magicians in Vegas. My first trip, I saw loads of shows. I saw magicians. I've seen I can't think of the word, but hypnotist. That's what I was trying to think of.
Hypnotist, yeah.
I've seen all kinds of things. So yeah, absolutely. There's pretty much a show for everyone. I wouldn't say there's necessarily, and people are going to disagree with me on this, but I wouldn't say there's a great number of shows suitable for children. And we haven't really talked about it, but I personally wouldn't take my children to Vegas. I know there are people that do and do it really well, and that's all power to them, because I think they, if they enjoy it, I don't mind children being in Vegas. There are people that say they shouldn't be here, but for me, I wouldn't take my kids there because there's not enough there for them. So yeah, that would be my shows. What about you?
So I liked Love as well. I think for me, my tip would be, if you're going to start with a show, go to one of the Cirque du Soleil shows, and there's so many of them now. I believe there's a new one at New York. Which
I've heard it's good too.
Yeah, I've heard good reviews. Something Apple, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I also enjoyed, which is slightly controversial now given the reputation, the one Michael Jackson, which is Cirque du Soleil. I really enjoyed that, which is a bit less high-powered than some of the others. It's a bit more, almost, what I say, sort of romantic jars and things that come out. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was fun. My tip would be, if you're looking for good value and you don't really mind what you're seeing, is they have quite a few booths along the strips for same day tickets called Tick for Tonight. And that's a good way if you're umming and ahhing and you don't really know, just go along there, and they're quite often half price on the same day, or at least 20% off. So that's a good starting point for booking tickets. I'd also advise, it's something you really want to see, book well in advance. Don't leave it until you get there, because particularly any of the big headliners, particularly if it's someone who hasn't been on for long or is only on for a few weeks, they will sell out very quickly, or you'll just be left with, you know, the bad seats, or the super expensive ones that can be, you know, $1,000 for a table in the VIP thing.
Those residencies are things that people book their trips around, particularly Americans. They will book their trip to go and see, I know, like Adele, when she sold out within minutes, but they will book their trips around seeing those people. So definitely don't leave those till the last minute. It's also worth, if you want a new, different experience, go and see, like, there's the ice hockey team now, the Golden Knights. That's a different experience that's worth doing. They've now got the football team, the Vegas Raiders, and there's a new stadium that's worth going and seeing. So there's all kinds of things now happening that weren't there, you know, certainly pre-COVID, or only just there pre-COVID. So yeah,
so much to do. You literally could probably be there for 6 months and see something different every night, because there's, you know, the shows that are on all the time, and then there's people that are only on for a couple of nights or even one night, so it's constantly changing all year, which is great. I thought I'd also just touch on spas, which I'm guessing Steve is not an expert on. But
I've been to a few. I have been to a few. I like the Caesars Palace spa. Yeah, that's a good spa. But yeah, it's not my specialist subject.
No, the Quar Spa at Caesars Palace is unique in that I don't think I've ever seen a snow room anywhere else. So you go in and it actually snows. It's not real snow, but it's quite a unique experience. I've seen ice rooms, but never one where it snows, and I think it's almost worth going for that. So my tips would be, if you're going to go for a spa trip, they're very expensive in Vegas, far more than you'd pay even in London. They're sort of like what you'd pay somewhere like the Dorchester, for example, that sort of price range.
You just have to accept it, but it's going to be that price, and just do it. You just got to accept it.
But they are cheaper if you go a Monday to Thursday. So if you're there for a few days, try and go on a weekday. Don't book for a weekend, because also they'll be busier. And do your research, because when you book a spa treatment, they always include use of the facilities. And there's a few, maybe if you book like a manicure and a separate nail bar, they might not be, but things like massages, facials include use of the facilities, but they vary absolutely wildly. Like the Four Seasons, I love the treatments there, but all they have is a steam room, nothing else. So you're not getting the value for money, versus going somewhere like the Caesars Palace one, where you've got a huge range of facilities. And some of the spas are really quite special. That one's really good. I really like the Mandarin Oriental, which has less there, but it's very, Mandarin, now Waldorf Astoria. It's very serene. It's all white marble. There's views of the Strip. There's a lovely sort of hydrotherapy pool that overlooks the Strip. Separate men's and women's there, which most of them are.
I was going to mention that,
Encore Spa is good. If you want to do something mixed, then Aria would be my pick, because they have separate men and women's, but in the middle they have the only outdoor pool for a spa, where it's like a sort of hydrotherapy pool that's outdoors, and that's mixed. So you come out of each side and you can meet in the middle. So that's quite fun if you're in a couple. The
only thing I would add is, you can also, if you don't want to do a treatment, a lot of the spas you can buy a day pass for, particularly in midweek. So you can pay like $50 or whatever, and you can come and go and use the facilities all day. And I've done that a few times, where you just go and, because I'm not a spa person, but I like a steam room and stuff every so often. So you can just pay to go in. You can use the steam room, the jacuzzi for a couple of hours. You might go away, come back later in the day. That's a good option. I was going to say, they're all gender segregated. Don't be surprised if you see random old naked men or women walking around, because they're gender segregated. But Aria is the one, if you want to meet up with a friend or a significant other, that's the one to go for. I think that's the only one that has that area that's sort of.
And it's a really nice spa. I like that one. It's got quite a lot. I mentioned Encore, also the Canyon Ranch Spa, which is Venetian. And Palazzo. It's sort of between the two. That one has a lot, but I find it very busy, because that used to be my go-to, but I now find it a bit too busy because it's so big. And the other one I like is the Delano, which is, it doesn't have a huge amount there. They're mainly pools, but it tends to be a bit quieter. And it's quite a small area, so I quite like that just because it tends to be, you know, more intimate. And the prices there tend to be a little bit cheaper, I find.
The spa at Cosmo is pretty good as well, actually. I would recommend that one too. It is smaller, on the smaller side, but it's good, and I've never found it to be particularly busy. The only other caveat I would add with the Aria one, if you're thinking of using that outdoor area, is certain points of the day and certain points of the year or the month, I guess, it can be quite noisy because they built an outdoor day club underneath it. So you could be out relaxing in your spa outdoor pool and then suddenly hear some drum and bass music coming from the day club. Just a caveat. Because, you know,
it could be quite a good way of someone like, I don't know, this show where Calvin Harris is on or something.
Yeah,
that you actually get to see them.
See them for free. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Just imagine you just closing your eyes for a few minutes and then all of a sudden.
Yeah. I used to quite like one of the hotels we missed that it's getting a bit old now, but it used to be really good value, was the Signature, which is attached to MGM, and that overlooks, some of those overlook the MGM pool parties, and quite often I used to sit on the balcony and listen to Calvin Harris play and think, well, at least I don't have to be down there with everyone else. I could just sit here with a glass of wine and enjoy it on my own balcony. Yeah, I'm a bit old for pool parties now, I think.
Never too old for a pool party. I'm in Vegas.
So I think we've covered a huge amount of material. I know you've written a post for Turning Left for Less, so I'm going to link that and all the relevant hotel reviews and information in the description so people can look it up. Is there anything else that you wanted to say to people that are visiting Vegas?
I think we've pretty much covered everything, haven't we? Just take it for what it is, enjoy. You know, Vegas for me is one of the best places to visit, and I'm sure you'll find that. Hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully the blog post will be useful. If anyone has any questions, please do get in touch. You can get in contact with me on Twitter at Las Vegas UK. You know, comment on the article, on the blog post, on the website, and there's the Facebook group as well, isn't there? Come and post, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. But yeah, I think we did a pretty good job, actually.
Well, I think the main thing we've kind of emphasised is about planning. And
definitely.
Kind of turning up with, and I think planning and also personalising. So don't just opt for the first hotel that looks good. Think about what you want out of Vegas. Are you going to gamble? Are you going to go shopping? You're going to see a show? You know, and look at it all in plenty of time so that you don't get there and end up disappointed because you can't get into what you wanted to do in terms of restaurants or shows. You know, it's the sort of place where, yes, you can be spontaneous, but you definitely need to book ahead for a lot of things, particularly at weekends. So that's kind of probably what we would emphasize out of today. And as you said, if anyone has any tips, then please add it to the articles, or if you've got any questions, we will come back to you. Just add it into the comments below the video, or put it on Steve's article, which we'll link in. And I'll just finish by saying thank you very much, Steve. That's been
no problem.
Very interesting to chat to you.
Always happy to talk about Vegas.
So that's all for this week. Goodbye from Charleston, and join me next week where I'll be talking about how to search for cheap flights. Until then, happy travels.